May peace and power and elevation be to all the beautiful folks out there. This your girl Tiffany here, live in effect. So, um, it's been a minute since I did a live video. So there's a lot that's been changed. As y'all can see, my background look different. So, yeah, I had to make some living arrangements going on, and also, it's been multiple other things that's been taking place too. So I just had to take a break from doing videos on YouTube, especially about history. So until I got everything situated, I decided, well, this would be the best time for me to come back and do videos on Black history. So as much as I enjoy doing it, I just had to take a break just to regroup myself, get myself together. But I want to say this before I get started. I want to thank everybody that has been supporting my channel, those who've been sharing my videos, subscribing to my videos, and all. And shout out to the new subscriber. I see y'all. Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate this journey. Real talk. So I'm back, and I'm I'm in full effect. And so I'm more relaxed and more comfortable. Yes. Okay. So yes, I'm gonna go ahead and do the subject that I told you guys that I was gonna talk about in my last video, and that was the one about the hoodoo. Okay. So I was gonna talk about this pastor. His name was Dr. Wyatt T. Walker. So Dr. Wyatt T. Walker was a pastor in Virginia. Okay. And he also was a good friend to Dr. Martin Luther King. All right. He was a civil rights activist, and he played his role in the civil rights movement. Now, what's so unique about him, because October is Hoodoo month. Okay. October is Hoodoo month. So what's very interesting is I have watched his video, an old sermon that he did, and he was talking about music, right? Gospel music and the origin of gospel music. So when he looks at the origin of gospel music and all other genres like R&B, jazz, blues, etc., it traces back to the African origin. So when you see the African origin, you'll see the connection. This is why it doesn't make sense for people to sit back and argue who started hip hop music when you can obviously see the African origin behind it. But people look to argue about anything nowadays. All right. So I was inspired to do a topic on him because of that particular sermon that he gave, and it was around 1988. And he wrote a book. And the title of the book that he wrote, excuse me. So the title of the book that he wrote was called Somebody's Calling My Name. Okay. And he written many other books, but I only got two of them. And I'm only going to go over two of them. All right. But yes, I think that this is an important part of it, because as we can see, when we talk about, or when we look into the history about Black churches, right? Now, we're not just looking at it from the standpoint of dealing with people going by religious texts and the Bible and things of that nature, but also just the cultural and the custom and the system behind it. Okay. So, although he did not identify himself as a Pan-Africanist, but the way he described Christianity in the Black church, or just Black people together, he traces back to the African origin of all these things. And so that's why I don't sit around and I don't necessarily criticize those who are in Abrahamic religion, because what I know is those that are formerly practicing Abrahamic religion, they have taken on the African custom and combined those elements together, blend them all together to create a uniqueness. So it would not be fair for me to sit there and criticize those who are practicing Abrahamic religion because that's what our ancestors did. No, we don't agree with everything as far as the beliefs in the gods and the holy texts, etc. You may not agree with every single thing, but that's all they had to fall on, you know, and they had to syncretize those things. That just that's just how things were at that time period. So it was a tradition that was passed on down. So especially if you're in the South, how can't you sit there and just sit around and criticize that all day without really looking at the origin and realize that, oh, okay, our people did create something unique behind this. They did something that was carried on for generation, because that was a way for them to preserve the African culture, the African custom, tradition. That was their way of doing it, by syncretizing. And we should be appreciative of that. We should. um, I'm gonna go ahead and get started because I don't want to take up too much time on here. So I'm just gonna go ahead and get started on the information. Okay. All right, so let me go ahead and let's start on the biography. So this information can be found on encyclopediavirginia.org. And according to that information, let me go ahead and pull it up for you guys. So let's just go over it. So Wyatt T. Walker was born on August 16th of 1929 in Brockton, Massachusetts, the 10th of 11 children to Pastor John Wise Walker and Maud Penn Walker. When he was still a baby, his family moved to Merchantville? Yeah, Merchantville, New Jersey, where he received his primary and secondary education, right? Let me try to get this together. All right, so where he received his primary and secondary education, and where at 9 years old, he and his siblings refused to be turned away from a segregated movie theater. So after graduating with a Bachelor of Science degree in chemistry and physics from Virginia Union University in Richmond in 1950, he earned his Master of Divinity degree in 1953 from Virginia Union University. While in seminary, Walker met Martin Luther King Jr. at an interseminary meeting while King was a student at Coastal Theological Seminary in Upland, Pennsylvania. All right, so it says that Walker served as the pastor of Gilfield Baptist Church in Pittsburgh from 1953 until 1959. And as as such, he stood alongside King as one of a group of younger, more liberal, more activist ministers who became important leaders of the civil rights movement. So Walker became the leader of several civil rights organizations. He was the president of the local chapter of the NAACP and state director of CORE, and he founded the Pittsburgh Improvement Association, a group that was modeled after King's Montgomery Improvement Association. So it says the Pittsburgh Improvement Association organized protests against several of the city's segregated facility. All right, so in fact, Walker was arrested the first of his 17 times in 1958 when he led his wife, children, and a few other pastors and students to an all-white Pittsburgh public library. So right here it says bomb damaged house in Birmingham, Alabama. So as we go down, skip down a little further. As a result of the success of the Pittsburgh Improvement Association, King appointed Walker in 1958 to the board of the newly founded SCLC, where Walker's work led to the establishment of the state chapter in Virginia. In 1960, Walker became the first full-time executive director of SCLC. He brought financial stability and organizational structure to the group, right? So it goes on to say that in 1964, Walker left his post at the SCLC and started work as a marketing specialist for the Negro Heritage Library, of which he became president in 1966. Part of the library's mission was to persuade schools to include the perspective and experiences of African American in their curricula. In 1967, at King's behest, Walker became the interim pastor of Canaan Baptist Church in Harlem, New York. There on March 24th, 1968, King served as the guest preacher at Walker's installation service. 11 days later, King was assassinated in Memphis, Tennessee. Okay, so this is him years later. All right, over here to the right corner. So in 1975, he earned his doctorate in African American Studies with a specialization in music from Colgate Rochester Divinity School in Rochester, New York. And throughout the 1970s, he served as New York Governor Nelson Rockefeller's urban affairs specialist, right? So in 1978, Walker organized the International Freedom Mobilization to protest apartheid in South Africa. In 1979, Walker published the first of his many books, Somebody's Calling My Name, Black Sacred Music and Social Change, in which he argued that what Black people are singing religiously will provide a clue as to what is happening to them sociologically. All right, so it says, after a period of illness that resulted in a major stroke in January 2003, Walker resigned as a senior pastor of Canaan Baptist Church of Christ after 37 years. In 2004, he was officially installed as pastor emeritus. On January 18th of 2009, he was one of 25 honorees who received the Keepers of the Flame award at the African American Church inaugural ball celebrating the inauguration of the United States President Barack Obama. Walker died at an assisted living facility in Chester on January 23rd, 2018. So these are the list of work that he has written so far. So if you go down, Somebody Call My Name, The Soul of Black Worship, right? Road to Damascus, A Journey of Faith, Spirits That Dwell Deep in the Woods, the prayer and praise hymns of the Black religious experience, Gospel in the Land of the Rising Sun, the Harvard paper, The African American Church and Economic Development, Soweto Diary, The Free Election in South Africa, featuring the original poetry of Nathan Wright Jr., A Prophet from Harlem Speaks, Sermon Essays, Race and Justice and Culture, Pre-Millennial Essay, Millennium End Papers, The Walker File, 1998 to 1999, My Stroke of Grace. Okay. So that's that information that could be found. Also, there's plenty of other information that people can look into. Also, you can go into Wikipedia, and then you can also look on stanford.edu. Okay. So I just want to talk real brief. Now, it's mighty strange because Dr. King has been placed on the pedestal and he has been honored, right? Because of his famous speech. But little do you hear a discussion about those who have worked alongside with him, those who have put in the effort to help build the organization and events that was taking place during those time periods. So I have great admiration for Dr. King. I really do. I admire his work. I admire his speeches, all of that. But there were people that worked alongside with him that helped him to accomplish those goals to get where he was at. And if it wasn't for those people, I don't think Dr. King would have gained that type of recognition that he has today. So it was people that was behind him that really put in the support, that put into the time and dedication to build community programs, events, and organization, etc. Right? And Reverend Wyatt T. Walker happened to be one of those people. So let's go ahead and let's look into something. Because it's very, to me, I think it's very intriguing that he has written books about Black religious experience and being able to connect it back to the African origin. So now let's go on to this book called Soul of Black Worship. So now this book, before I even start, this book was written in 1984. Okay? It was written in 1984. So now let's go down to 19 where it says the Black preacher figure. It says, the Black preacher figure, sermons do not come out of the air. Although sometimes when you are on the receiving end, it seems so. They are the extension of the preacher person. Any analysis of the sermon in the Black religious experience must begin with the Black preacher. The King era moved the Black preacher to the center stage once again in the public mind. It should be noted that he or she was always center stage in the community's mind due to the unique nature of task and function. So check this out. There's a striking parallel between the African priest doctor and the Afro-American pastor. Each presides over and is involved in the life crisis of the people he serves: birth, death, sickness, puberty, trouble, domestic discord, marriage, etc., etc. The renaissance of the interest in the Black preacher as a central figure in the affairs of Black people has created a parallel interest in his craft, preaching. Whatever else he may do, the folk base has been primarily the preaching of the sermon. And says it might be helpful to look at this phenomenon a little more closely. There is no dispute that preaching is essential and central in the Black religious experience. It follows then that the preacher is the central figure. The combination of centrality of preaching and the dominance of preaching person has left an indelible imprint on the style and content of the Black church enterprise, the institution of primary influence among Black folks. Now let's go right here where I got highlighted. African priest doctor and the Afro-American pastor. So he brings the comparison. Why is that? Because the African priest, right? Let's just say in the traditional sense, right? Those who practice into the spiritual system, he's regarded as the higher figure. And he's well respected. So people come to him for questions, for healing, for problem solving. And he come and serve the community when it comes to wedding, funerals, a birth of a child, anything. So that's the kind of role that the pastor play. So what I'm saying is when we see how our people function in the church, right, we'll see that there is some form of African spirituality. And within those churches, within those religious systems, we see that. Because the way the pastor is regarded is how the African priest is regarded by the community as well. So I think that he does a great job at bringing that comparison. Now let's see if we can go down any further. So check this out. Historically, the black preacher has been the most reverent figure in the black community, a statement which by itself is a social commentary on the black church enterprise. The black preacher fired the hopes and aspiration of the oppressed community and became in turn a symbolic medicine man for all the ills that occurred. The influence of the black preacher in the in coloring the religious life of black people is inestimable. It's understandable then that the black preacher becomes the focus of much severe criticism that indicts the gospel he preaches as being otherworldly in character. And he goes on to say the lies Western historian printed about our physical bondage in this republic so effectively camouflage the stark reality of slavery that America has never had an honest appreciation for the absolutely crucial role that religion played in the life of the antebellum and post-Civil War black community. Read carefully accurate description of the slave and post-war circumstances, and you will find them so oppressively cruel and inhumane across the board that if black preachers had not universally convinced the slave community that a better day was coming by and by, there might have been mass suicide or something far worse. And that's deep. It would have been more suicide because at the end, when black people during that time period dealing with the antebellum slavery and all, they were looking for a concept of hope. They were looking for salvation. They was looking for inner peace. So the concept of hope and salvation, inner peace, was something that was very unique and important for those in our community. So of course they would go and listen to the gospels, the word of God, the Bible, etc., just so they can be able to stay focused and continue to persevere and move forward. And when they sing these gospel hymns, that's their way of being able to meditate. That's their meditation. It's singing gospel hymns, Negro spirituals. It's their meditation. It's their peace. All right. Then you go down and say the preaching and theology of black preachers with all in profession gave cohesion and commonality to an oppressed people. It seems from this vantage point of history that sheer genius coupled with the providence of Almighty God enabled black people to survive slavery at all. Beyond surviving the slave experience, black folks emerge from their collective traumatic experience with a clear conception of the Jesus faith, then the master from whom they learned his name. And you know what? I think this book is very intriguing. I'm surprised that many people have not even spoken of this man or in his work. So Wyatt T. Walker, The Soul of Black Worship, very intriguing. And at that time, it was $7.95. Yeah, but his work has gone unheard of. And it's amazing that it's not really focused within the black churches. And it's just not focused in the black community or the conscious community. But the conscious community have their own little thing going on anyhow. So they don't focus on a lot of people, even those who have really played a part, integrated part in the conscious community. They won't even really focus too much on them. They focus on something or someone that's very popular. So in this book right here, somebody's calling my name, Black Sacred Music and Social Change. So I really won't go over this book like that, but I just want to show you guys the title. But as you can see, this right here is a diagram. Let me zoom it up. Now with this diagram, it shows different colors, right? Now what we know is it says the slave utterance chants, moan, cries for deliverance. That's the root. So basically he's showing the root. And then the colors represents the origins, right? So pure spiritual, anthematic spiritual, concept spiritual, right? And then you got the modern jazz. You got jazz, New Orleans jazz, dance jazz, cool jazz, rhythm and blues, ragtime, black meter music, historic gospel, modern gospel music. So he shows all these different things based on this diagram. He shows where the origin come from and how it came into existence. So, a matter of fact, what I want to do, I want to play one of the videos of the lecture that he did. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and post this video up. All right, so this video, came from the Tony Brown Journal. So Tony Brown, if he's currently still around, is a Republican, right? Was a black Republican, but he had a show that dealt with primarily African American history and the issues in the African American community. So he had various people from various backgrounds. He had black folks that were activists, black people that were Democrats, black people that was Republicans, black people that was into music, politics, education, whatever you can think of. That's where Tony Brown had those people. Okay. So his show was very popular back in the 70s all the way up to the 90s. His show was very popular then. Okay. So I'm going to play one of the video clips where the late Reverend Wyatt T. Walker speaks on the origin of gospel music. All right.
And my thesis was that if singing religiously or otherwise, if you listen to what black people are singing religiously or otherwise, it's a clue as to what is happening to them sociologically. So wherever there was a crisis in black people's sociology, the music reflected it. Now, for the sake of analysis, at emancipation, black people's music took two main routes. The people who kept faith sang the music as it developed, the people who lost faith start singing another kind of music. Those who kept the faith, the spirituals, were adapted to the meter music, and we created what is known as black meter music. That music put its imprimatur on the Euro-American hymns as we came into the period of literacy around the turn of the century. Having the confidence of influencing that music, then we created our own gospel. That is our stylistic form of music with the liberality of feeling the spirit. And then in the 50s and 60s, borrowing from other forms of music, we created what is now known as modern gospel. Now, I need you to hold a peg right there while I go back and trace this other music. The people who lost faith start singing the blues. And some people are singing the blues right until the present day. Blues spun off ragtime. Ragtime spun off jazz. And jazz went through several changes. Dance jazz, New Orleans jazz, modern jazz, and cool jazz. Now, you will see that jazz and blues cross-fertilized each other and produced a phenomenon at the height of the 50s called rhythm and blues. Now, if you listen carefully to the beat of rhythm and blues, it is identical to the beat of modern gospel, which brings you quickly to the conclusion that the same beat that black folks dance to on Saturday night is the same beat we shout to on Sunday morning. Now, if you pull into a situation and you hear the beat and you don't know what the program is, I tell people, watch the direction of the shout. If it's up and down, it's religious. If it's from side to side, it's secular. When I was about 3/5 of the way through my study, I had picked out for my track the spirituals, black meter music, hymns of improvisation, historic gospel, and modern gospel. But about 3/5 of the way through, I discovered there was another identifiable form of black sacred music that was always around but was not written down anywhere. And for the sake of giving it a name, I call it prayer and praise songs, because they were used in those pre-prayer services held before the formal service. Now,
so that's the information on the music tree as he demonstrated. Okay, so he shows the connection in how these different genres, how they all got something in common. How they all have something in common, and how they all sound different. Okay. So as he was saying, when black people was losing hope, they turned into the secular music, right? Which was the ragtime jazz, the folk music, the R&B. And when they kept the hope alive, they transitioned over to gospel music. But you can hear the similarity in the sound as far as the beat and the tempo is concerned. All right. So anyways, you guys, I want to thank you all for tuning in and watching. With that being said, I hope you all have a good one. I hope you all be safe. And to next time, may peace and power and elevation be to all of you. This your girl Tiffany, and I'm logging out saying deuces. And I want to thank y'all so much for y'all support. And for those of you that's checking out my channel, make sure you continue to share the videos and subscribe, hit the notification bell and all. So until next time, deuces. Thank you.